By the end of the Gen Z era, nearly 1/3 of its generation has been aborted. That's 24.7 million lives never given the chance to live. Abortion is not just a private issue. That's why this is so important. It involves women, men, and families, and also shapes society as a whole. The statistics and medical information is going to be presented from the National League of Medicine and the Journal of Medical Ethics. In today's society, abortion is seen as empowering and morally acceptable. But in its reality, it's the taking of an innocent human life. Abortion can never and will never be justifiable by size or location. Human life begins at conception and has equal value across the board. Viability and medical necessity does not mean that abortion is always the right way. My first point is that life begins at conception. Understanding this is important because that determines where human rights start. One common argument against abortion is that the baby in the womb is just a clump of cells. However, this is proven faulty by a study by Stephen Andrew Jacobs, who states that 95% of biologists agree that conception is the beginning of life. It also states that at conception, the baby meets all 7 characteristics of life. Through the IVF thought experiment, which poses the question of would you rather save 1,000 embryos or 1 toddler in a burning clinic? This question is very emotional and is not science-based. However, it does not change biology. Now that we understand the beginning of life, the next question is, when does that life have value, and how much value? All life has value and deserves protection. So because of that, the child in the womb deserves protection. Some say that babies don't feel pain, which is incorrect due to a study called Reconsidering Fetal Pain. This study states that pain perception is received much earlier than previously thought for babies in the womb. Even though that might be true, rights are not determined by the ability to feel pain. Value based on development, size, and procreation is dangerous, especially to newborns and disabled people and the unconscious, because they rely on others, which is the same logic as babies in the womb. Human rights should never be considered not important because of development and on its circumstances. We must recognize value to better argue against abortion. Next is discussing viability and medical necessity. Arguments on viability and medical necessity will never justify abortion. This is some of the most common justification and support reasons for abortion. Viability determines whether or not babies are worth protection. This is not a fixed point, though. This can change based on medical terminology and medical advancements. And basing human rights depending on medical advancements is incredibly dangerous instead of basing it off of inherent value. Dependency does not determine worth. This is dangerous because even babies after birth need help. That does not mean that they can die. Medical necessity is never needed to save a mom's life. In cases of high blood pressure, cancer, heart disease, or diabetes, treatments in order to save the mom's life is most safely done through early delivery for both the mom and the baby, rather than the intentional killing of a living being. This shows the difference between condition and direct cause of death. Abortion is seen as a personal choice and acceptable, even though it's murder and not justifiable. Human life begins at conception. Human life has value, and arguments of viability and medical necessity do not ever give justification for abortion. If we truly believe in human rights, that must apply to everyone. Every life deserves the chance to exist. Okay, and here's my note cards.